and unscrewed the metal cap and took a drink. Generations of inbreeding have put it into your blood. The land, the house, the country around it, and all that goes with it is inside you. He waited on the dock until the launch came. He went aboard and stood on the bow and leaned against the deck rail. The deckhands cast off the mooring lines and the boat headed for the mainland. Avery looked out towards the Gulf and saw the gray shapes of two oil tankers silhouetted against the sky. He wondered where they were going. Ahead lay the mainland, a long stretch of white beach with a heavy line of trees in the background. Off to the left, he could see the salt marsh with its flat expanses of alligator grass and the blasted trunks of cypress trees half submerged in the water. A sailboat came out of the lagoon, tacking in the breeze. He took another drink from the bottle and turned his face into the wind. The air was fresh with the smell of brine. The whiskey felt hot inside him, and he was getting a good edge on. The boat churned inland and past the sandbars in the salt marsh and neared the dock. He put the bottle in his bag and walked down the gangplank after the boat landed. Several trawlers were tied up at the dock. The fishermen were spreading out their nets to dry. He walked up the landing, the duffel over his shoulder, past a few boarded shacks and headed down a gravel road that would take him to the highway. There was thick green foliage on both sides of the road, and tall gray oaks with hanging moss, and the late afternoon sun cast dark shadows over the lane. He saw a nutria, like a huge rat, swimming in the irrigation canal beside the road. Two cranes flew up over the trees from the swamp, their wings gilded in the sunlight. Avery came out on the highway and hitched a ride with an old man in a vegetable truck. Riding along, he thought about his family, or what was left of it. His mother had died in childbirth, and his brother had been killed at Normandy. Now it was just his father and himself, and sometimes he wondered if it wouldn't be better if they were gone too. His family had lived for over 100 years in Martinique Parish, in the same house, on the same piece of ground which his great-grandfather had bought from the Louisiana government when he came from the West Indies in 1850. His great-grandfather had had a Negro servant who came with him as a free man into a slave country, and the two of them had built a sugarcane plantation that was later to become one of the largest in the southern portion of the state. When the war between the states broke out, Avery's great-grandfather had enlisted in the Confederate Army, although he spoke only a few words of English, and was made a captain in the infantry. He and his servant were attached to the 8th Louisiana Volunteers under General Jackson, and at the Battle of Fredericksburg he was made deaf by the explosion of a cannonball, and was captured by the Federal Army and imprisoned at Johnson's Island for the remainder of the war. When Appomattox came, he and his servant took turns riding a half-starved mule through the bayou country and moccasin-infested swamps, with nothing to eat except a sack of parched corn, until they returned to Martinique Parish to attempt rebuilding what was left of their home after the fields had been burned, the stock killed, and the house shelled by artillery. During Reconstruction, half of the land was lost to carpetbaggers, and the other half was left unplanted, because there was no money to buy seed or to hire manual labor. The great-grandfather was killed in a duel in 1870 by a Spanish aristocrat who made a profitable living as a scalawag, and who had tried to buy the Broussard land at 1/3 of its value. Rebuffed, he had joined forces with the carpetbag government in an attempt to prove that Mr. Broussard was the leader of the night riders which terrorized the Negro voters. The Spanish aristocrat won his duel, but he was shot dead 2 weeks later on Rampart Street in New Orleans. A witness to the shooting said that a well-dressed Negro had approached the Spaniard, asked his name, then pulled a dueling pistol from his vest and fired from 3 feet. No one knew the Negro, nor did they ever see him again in New Orleans, but some believed him to be the servant of the man whom the Spaniard had killed in a duel some time before. Over the years, the land was lost in pieces until Avery's father, Raphael Broussard, owned only 20 acres of the original 2,000-acre tract. Now there was no one left save Avery and his father and a Negro named Baptiste, who was the grandson of the servant the first Broussard had brought with him from the West Indies in 1850. The 20 acres of land was mortgaged, and it no longer produced enough cane to pay their expenses. The truck stopped, and Avery climbed down and thanked the old man. He started down the lane through the wood gate towards the house.